child, Morgan Lee Pena. We're coming upon an anniversary, November 3rd, where she was tragically killed in a car accident, with the other driver being on a cell phone, running a stop sign, and hitting the vehicle broadside.
Violators of the law will be fined $150. Hands-free cell phones will still be allowed in the county.
Vice President Al Gore.
Marcus, thank you very much. A Roslyn Heights homeowner has died in a fire despite desperate attempts to save him. That fire broke out at 2:30 this morning in a home at 68 Linden Court. Police say 2 people in the house escaped, but when they went back to try and rescue a 3rd person, the smoke and the heat pushed them back. 57-year-old Dennis Bostad was pronounced dead at the scene, and detectives are still investigating. Nassau County Executive Thomas Goliath.
Talk a little football, and you can't complain about the Jets' 6-2 record and being tied atop the AFC East, but a glaring problem is turnovers. They had 4 in yesterday's loss to Buffalo. Vinny Testaverde had 2 picks and a fumble. He, for one, knows that's got to be eliminated.
We have to overcome it and make sure that we're not helping the other team win the game like what happened yesterday with especially the 1 interception for the touchdown.
Jones on his way. Touchdown Buffalo.
For the most part, it's the quarterback's job to make the right decision with the football, whether he's under pressure or no pressure. He's the one responsible for throwing the football and making the decision on where it should be thrown.
Not to jump ahead, but I'm already thinking New York Super Bowl.
Rick Lazio is now on the defensive over his attacks on Hillary Clinton for accepting donations from a Muslim group. The Times reports Congressman Lazio called the $50,000 donation to Mrs. Clinton's campaign, quote, blood money, end quote. But the head of the New York chapter of the American Muslim Alliance accuses the Lazio campaign of hypocrisy.
I have basically received a number of solicitations from Mr. Lazio asking for political contributions. I have written to him several times asking that he give us an opportunity with the Muslim community to meet with him. He has never responded.
The Lazio campaign dismisses the criticism, saying the fundraising pitch was part of a...
Our National Football League teams got back to work for their respective games on Sunday, while the first-place Giants travel to Cleveland to take on the Browns. The Jets will be hosting the Denver Broncos. Gangrene still on top in the AFC East, but they're sharing that spot with both the Dolphins and the Colts. That after committing 4 turnovers and coughing up a victory to the Bills in Buffalo last Sunday, 23-20 in overtime.
It was just a bad game, you know, and we had turnovers, and you know, we know that we can't do that. I know that I personally can't afford to fumble the ball. I hate the fumble. That's like the worst feeling for a running back. I have to correct that. We have to correct our turnovers as a team.
All right, owning up. A couple of hockey notes.
Your Money News now. Thousands of bootleg tapes and CDs are off the streets of Long Island tonight. Investigators say cheap knockoffs look like the real thing, but don't sound as good when you play them. 4 people are charged with selling the fake copies at stores around Nassau County. Police also seized the equipment used to make the bootleg recordings.
Stocks closed mixed on Wall Street today.
And the police are trying to track down a masked gunman. He pulled off an armored car heist on Long Island. He stole a bag of money this morning from an armored car that had pulled up to the Sunrise check cashing store in Merrick. No official word on how much they got away with, but there are reports that it could have been as much as $350,000. The gunman got away in a maroon minivan. And if you haven't climbed to the...
And there's a world of difference between sending a form letter out to somebody inadvertently and inviting somebody to the White House who espouses terrorism.
This week, state Republicans launched a phone campaign for Lazio, linking Clinton's fundraising with Muslims to the same kind of terrorism that led to the USS Cole tragedy. With that in mind, the Lazio fundraising letters were especially troubling to Dr. Farouk.
It's terrible. It's terrible. He's tainting the whole Muslim community, and it's like, you know, if an Italian gave money, it's like a mafia money. This is absurd. Every American citizen has a right to participate in the political process.
Lazio on Wednesday night.
They are 6-2 in a 3-way tie for first place in the AFC East as they get ready for Sunday's game in the Meadowlands against Denver. And despite last weekend's turnover-filled loss to Buffalo, these Jets never seem to give up.
A lot of people talking about never say die. This is the first time that I've actually and literally witnessed and been a part of it. A lot of teams talk a lot about never giving up, but you can tell on the sidelines a lot of times when you get behind that a team is giving up, you can just feel it. I haven't felt that.
High praise from veteran Curtis Martin. The Giants playing...
Arrested in connection with the beating of immigrant workers on Long Island is in court today. Andrea Day has been following this story. She's in Central Islip with more. Hello, Andrea.
Hello, Mario. Well, cops have known who he was for a while, but Christopher Slavin has been on the run, going possibly as far as Pennsylvania. Today, he's facing charges of attempted murder. Last night, Christopher Slavin walked into the Suffolk DA's office and surrendered. Investigators had been on the hunt for the 29-year-old ever since 2 Mexican immigrants were brutally beaten in Farmingville. The workers were taken into an abandoned warehouse with a promise of a day's pay, but instead were viciously attacked. Cops caught up with Ryan Wagner last month, who allegedly attacked the day workers along with Slavin. Wagner blamed his rage on alcohol and claims he's not connected to any hate groups. But detectives found Wagner covered in hate tattoos and say his partner in crime, Christopher Slavin, wears similar symbols on his body. Now, one of the victims in this case has since returned to Mexico. Other immigrants this morning say there's some relief today, but they still live in fear every day of being attacked. For now, we're live in Central Islip, Long Island. I'm Andrea Day, Fox 5 News. Mario, back to you.
Thank you, Andrea, very much.
Lashing out at Rick Lazio about campaign tactics, and Lazio is responding in kind. Our political reporter Dave Evans is live in Long Beach with the late details. Dave.
Well, David, I think that the big development today in the New York Senate race is the fact that Governor Pataki has talked about those new phone ads from Republicans. He now says that those controversial phone calls linking Mrs. Clinton to terrorism were wrong. But if you thought that development would make Mrs. Clinton a kinder, gentler candidate today, you'd be wrong. Today, she is on the attack.
Lazio said.
Overnight, the Clintons' commercial of its campaign, an ad recalling Congressman Lazio's attack in the first debate, thrusting that soft money pledge at Mrs. Clinton.
Here, sign it right now, sign it right now.
Today in Long Beach, Mrs. Clinton campaigned with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and talked about the environment, but even that turned toward criticizing her opponent.
If he is such a supporter of the environment, why did he vote to weaken the Superfund laws? If he's such a supporter of the environment, why did he vote for the Gingrich budget that would have decimated the enforcement powers of the Environmental Protection Agency?
Congressman Lazio also in the final days of this race has chosen to accentuate the negative.
Mrs. Clinton is the person who invited somebody to the White House who believes that terrorism and violence is an appropriate tool. She attended the fundraiser. She received the plaque. She acknowledges the fact, I think, that this person who espouses terrorism and violence has been on the public payroll.
Well, Congressman Lazio today is again upstate. He will likely remain there until Election Day. He has to do well in upstate New York, also here on Long Island, if he has any hope of countering Mrs. Clinton's big numbers in the city. Right now, she is leading according to most polls, but that lead is very, very slight. It is simply too close to call in the New York Senate race. Reporting live in Long Beach, Dave Evans, ABC 7.
Any former librarian upset Forbes in the primary, but then had to face off against the fireworks maven with $1 million war chest.
I don't have a lot of money, and they know that every single person who's voting for me is really voting for somebody who represents their views. And I think that's what they want. I think they're tired of politics as usual.
Felix Grucci faced his own bumps along the road, including an investigation of groundwater contamination. But the supervisor of Suffolk's largest town didn't seem fazed. He took his son, Felix III, to vote for the very first time.
Well, this has been a great learning experience, learning more and more about what's on the minds of the people, making sure that we take care of their issues that are important to them, issues of health care, Social Security, and the issues that are on the minds of the American citizens and the minds of the people of the 1st Congressional District.
Whatever happens, it's the people in this community who have made it happen, and I think they realize that.
The race to fill Rick Lazio's seat has been heated and sometimes downright nasty. Joan Johnson hoped to be the first black Republican woman in the House. Democrat Steve Israel vied to be the first Jewish congressman from the district, but both have accused the other of lying and adding to the mix 3 other candidates in the 5-way.
Joseph Jerome will be arraigned today on charges of leaving the scene of an accident. Police say Jerome killed Carlos Torrens of Yaphank when he hit him last month as Torrens was walking home from work. And off-duty New York City corrections officers
And still ahead, the miracle of life.
Just ahead on Eyewitness News, one of the tiniest babies ever born at one local hospital goes home.
And Sam's forecast.
Age.
Oh, isn't she adorable? She is being called a miracle baby. Madison Savoia weighed just 12 ounces when she was born July 14th. She's been in the neonatal intensive care unit at University Hospital and Medical Center in Stony Brook. Today, though, she finally got a chance to go home. Experts say it is very rare for a child born so small to survive. Mom and Dad are thrilled to be able to take her home, and doctors say she's going to be just fine.
Just lovely.
Isn't she precious?
Let's talk about the weather, Sam.
Race for president.
And also a story of survival. A baby who weighed only 12 ounces at birth is now thriving and going home.
Then the free credit card to reward.
Ernie, the smaller they are at birth, the lesser their chances for survival. So when Madison Savoia was born back in July, doctors told her parents she had a 50-50 chance. Looking stronger and, of course, larger than she was when she entered the world 4 months ago, little Madison Savoia is finally going home.
When she was born, they said that babies usually less than 500 grams wouldn't survive. But we had no doubt that Madison would make it.
Indeed, she has. This miracle baby weighed less than 1 pound at birth. Mom Christine had severe high blood pressure, and Madison came into the world way early, at 28 weeks.
We take care of many babies who are in the range of 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. To have a baby this much less than 1 pound is quite unique and quite extraordinary.
And so it was a celebration for the staff to send Madison home at 4 pounds, 5 ounces and 17 inches long. Taking care of this particular preemie has been a new challenge, especially with her teeny tiny size.
Everything has to be scaled down to size. All of the IV tubing, the endotracheal tubes are all very small. Not too dissimilar from what we use with other tiny premature babies.
She's changed our lives, and we're going to be the best parents that we possibly can be.
Modern medicine has given babies like Madison a far greater chance for survival, and doctors say they've been able to reduce the risk for residual problems later in life.
We have the use of surfactant, which is a protein that actually helps the lung develop, and we know the premature infant has a immature lung.
More than a dozen preemies are under the constant care of doctors and nurses at NYU's neonatal ICU, including a set of triplets who are in good health despite their early arrival. For their parents, they too look forward to going home with healthy babies. Madison's parents have a long road to go with their baby, with weekly trips.
Baby, just 12 ounces at birth. The amazing story is up next on a Fox 5 10 o'clock news. Only in theaters.
There's been a tiny miracle on Long Island. Madison Savoia was born prematurely in July at 28 weeks. She weighed just 12 ounces. She lived in the ICU unit at Stony Brook University Hospital for about 4 months, but now she weighs 4.5 pounds and is strong enough to go home. Her doctors say she's a real fighter. Very few babies this small survive.
Welcome home. You know, some of them...
Sam on Fox 5.
A car chase in Ohio ended in gunfire. It was all caught on the camera of the trooper's car. Happened last month, but the video's just been released. Police pulled over a stolen car and ordered the driver to drop his knife. He refused. They even sprayed him with mace. Still, he came at them. They shot in self-defense and killed him. Turns out the man had been using cocaine. And the police in Clifton, New Jersey.
All right, Mike. Well, there's the picture for the day. The skies opened up early this morning, pouring rain all over the area. Downtown Long Island, drivers had to navigate flooded streets. Maybe if you were lucky, though, you got to roll over and stay in bed. Not us, though. For the rest of the working world, it was a very wet commute today.
This morning, that's how you felt when you heard all that this morning. A lot of rain. Quite a bit. As a matter of fact, we got videotape to prove it. Out on Long Island today, lots of local flooding of some of the streets because of the downpours. In some areas over Long Island receiving up to 3 and in some cases a little more than 3 inches of rain. Of course, the leaves left over from the trees are clogging some of the drains, and so the flooding was a problem in some streets this morning, but things are starting to wind down. Although we do have a little bit of light rain activity still out there. We'll show you that on Doppler 4000. And
football. Moving on to the gridiron business now. Yesterday was Black Sunday with both local squads getting beat. Giants, however, do remain in first place with their 7-3 record. Jets, on the other hand, have fallen to 6-4 after suffering their 3rd loss in a row and now find their playoff hopes in serious doubt.
It's frustrating right now, and if we don't turn this thing around, we're not going to have a chance to make a shot at the playoffs. And then, you know, I've been around those locker rooms before, and it's no fun.
I think we understand it, that we've got to win 4 of the next 6 to get in this thing. We win 4 out of the next 6, I think our chances of getting in are good.
They need to know, the Jets, it's like a fight. You can't go in a heavyweight fight and give the other guy 8 rounds, let him beat you up, and then decide to try and win late. This late comebacks aren't working.
No. Well, you know, the Jets may need to do some scouting for the future, and I mean the future.
The Jets, they fell behind early again in Indianapolis, but as has been the case lately, they couldn't complete the comeback and fall 23-15 to the Colts. Suddenly, they've lost 3 in a row and dropped to 6-4.
It's frustrating right now, and if we don't turn this thing around, we're not going to have a chance to make a shot at the playoffs. And then, you know, I've been around those locker rooms before, and it's no fun.
And finally tonight, the Nets, well, they lost.
And take to the air where hindsight is always 20/20. It's time for the Armchair Quarterback, and we begin with the Jets, where the song remains the same, but with different results. Used to be this team could go drilling in the 4th quarter and strike up a win, but that well has run dry.
I don't think that issue here is what we're made of. I think what issue is, what's at issue here is execution.
Well, Al knows his problem, but there is still no answer to the big question. How do you get the Jets to execute in the 1st quarter instead of the 4th?
You know, when we were winning games, you know, it wasn't as frustrating, but to lose 3 in a row and know that you put yourselves in a bad position because of the first half, it's very frustrating, and we have to continue to work hard to get out of it.
It's a real kick in the pants. And speaking of kicks, you know, if John Hall converts on those 2 long field goal tries, they were long, but the Jets get to within striking distance if he hits. Different game. But then again, if Vinny doesn't throw 2 interceptions, and if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a very merry playoff Christmas, too.
I think we understand it, that we've got to win 4 of the next 6 to get in this thing. We win 4 out of the next 6, I think our chances of getting in are good.
All right, you heard it. From the gang that can turn you green, we turn to the big team that gave its fans.
A benefit brunch was held for 2 Long Island kids with a rare disease. 12-year-old Keith Quattrell and his 9-year-old sister Kristen both need kidney transplants. The good news is that each of their parents is a match for them. Their mother Janice is a match for Keith, Father Paul is a match for Kristen. In Patchogue, friends rallied to raise money for the transplant surgeries.
There's a lot of good people that are out there that want to help us and the children, and you know, hopefully when all is said and done, you know, it will work out just fine.
The children are expected to undergo the transplant sometime next year.
Now it's Suffolk County. A man's been arrested under a new hate crime law. He's charged with a sex attack on another man. Andrea Day is in Huntington with more.
Hi, Mario. The victim reached out to Bias Help here in Huntington. He was battered and bruised and very afraid.
He called him a faggot, he called him queer, he demanded oral sex from him, and then he jumped on him, pinned him down, began having sexual contact with him. All the time he was beating him and shouting anti-gay epithets.
Jeffrey Reynolds says the 41-year-old victim struggled to get away, but was overpowered. When it was all over, he called the Bias Help hotline, and cops arrested this man, 42-year-old Michael Ashley. Ashley is charged with attempted sodomy and the first man in Suffolk County to be arrested under the new hate crimes bill.
The bill was passed to send a clear message to hate crime offenders that this type of thing is not acceptable, and if you commit a hate crime anywhere in New York State, we're going to punish you for it. New York State was only one of 7 states that didn't have such a law, so clearly it was a big victory for the community that deals with these kind of crimes.
Now, the hate crimes bill was passed earlier this year, and Michael Ashley will be arraigned on those charges later today. For now, we're in Huntington, Long Island. I'm Andrea Day, Fox 5 News. Back to you.
The county executive has a new budget plan that calls for future property tax increases and union concessions. Thomas Galata claims the county's budget crisis will get even worse if his plan is not approved. Long Island correspondent Lauren DeFranco now live in Mineola with the details. Lauren?
Well, Rob, now it's up to the Democratic majority to approve the 4-year plan or come up with a compromise, and quickly, because one thing is guaranteed. Without a plan, the state will take control of Nassau County's finances.
Nassau County
Today, Nassau County Executive Executive Tom Galata released the details of his 4-year budget plan. It includes a 7.9% property tax increase for the year 2001 and a 3% property tax increase for each of the following 3 years.
I think we have a plan that is very viable, very realistic, that guarantees Nassau County's future stability, fiscal stability, and health, and I hope that the legislature will act upon it quickly.
But Democratic Majority Leader Judy Jacobs is reluctant to say legislators will approve the plan, in part because the county executive vetoed the Democrats' original proposal to raise property taxes by 15% in 2001.
We are looking at this 4-year plan, this 3-year plan, out-year plan, based on a first year that does not have the stability that our first year did. And we're being asked to give our approval to this.
Richard Kessel is one of the 7 members Governor Pataki appointed to oversee Nassau's budget-making process. He says the timing is critical for Democrats and Republicans in the legislature to work together with the county executive to finalize this plan.
And now it's up to the county executive and the legislature to agree to a 4-year plan and send it to us.
I think there's enough people in power in Nassau County who feel that once they get a control board, everybody is off the hook, that the state will take care of it, it'll treat it like a good foster child, it'll see that the county is fed and taken care of, which is a drastic mistake.
And analysts say local politicians have made this budget battle so personal that they had the inability to come together. And analysts believe that Nassau County is inching closer to a state control board. Reporting live from Mineola, Long Island, Lauren DeFranco, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you. At a Long Island dry cleaning shop sent 4 people to the hospital. Fire marshals tell us a gasket failed on a high-pressure pipe at the New Clear Cleaners in Long Beach. One worker was hit in the face with steam along with a dry cleaning chemical known as PERC. His face and lungs were burned. 3 others suffered minor injuries and were sent home from the hospital.
In Texas, federal investigators still trying to figure out what caused a news help.
Looking for a free ride on the subway. Officers have been leaving the gates open next to the turnstiles at busy stations. When people go through the gates to beat the fare, cops slap them with a ticket. One man who got caught says it's not fair because he doesn't ride the subways often and he didn't know he was breaking the law.
There was a door wide open and many people were going through it. So I looked at the sign quickly, I was in a rush, and I went through the door.
Mr. Merkel says he's going to fight the $60 tickets. So far this year, police have given out 86,000 of those tickets.
That thing's a killer.
And it hurts.
Meantime, Jim Fossil, I mean, how many cliches was in that?
Yeah, quite a few.
Man, he meant every word of it, though.
I'll tell you what, though, he's trying to fire up his team.
Yeah, they need it.
Thank you,
Fran.
20-3 win over Miami puts them right back in the AFC East race, 1 game behind the Fins. Coach Al Groh liked what his team did, how they responded to the must-win situation.
I thought the players did an excellent job of just rising to the occasion and making plays. It really became a player's game. You know, the guys out there, once you get a feel for how this particular game is flowing, they've got to respond to it, and I thought the players did a great job with it.
They sure did. The Jets, though, are keeping mum on running back Curtis Martin.
For own injury woes, Curtis Martin left the Miami game with what was described as a back injury. Now the Jets are being vague about the injury and his prognosis.
Meanwhile, if he plays, he plays. If he doesn't, he doesn't. And that's about the extent of where we'll go with that. I'm not being evasive. If he's going to be out for the game, I guess we'd say he's out for the game now as well as on Wednesday.
They say the injury's in the pelvic area. Monday night
Evil with running back Curtis Martin's bad back. Coach Al Groh says tests are still going on and he knows nothing. Of course, with Martin out in the second half yesterday, former Dolphin Bernie Parmalee was able to run for 2 touchdowns against his old team and give the Jets a 20-3 win.
Bernie's a tough guy, and I've had a saying in my mind over the years for a long time that it's tough guys you can trust. Bernie's very responsible to himself, holds himself to a high standard, and as a result, whatever you give him to do, you know it's going to be done to a pretty high level.
Meanwhile, the Giants.
J-E-T-S, Jets, Jets, Jets. Shh, keep it down. But the Jets show they can win a football game without a desperate comeback in the 4th quarter. They did it with defense, folks, defense.
I thought the players did an excellent job of just rising to the occasion and making plays.
Sean Ellis made a big one. So much for hitting the rookie wall.
I talked to him about that wall last week, and I told him that wall's BS.
Well, and the former Dolphin, Bernie Parmalee, made the most of his chances, filling in for the injured Curtis Martin.
That's what they paid me for, you know. That when he went down, I was the next man in line, and I didn't want to let the team down.
Well, mission accomplished, but when it comes to the...
We're riding the train on Long Island Railroad's Ronkonkoma line this evening. You were probably late for dinner. A train hit a car stuck at a crossing in Wyandanch. The driver of the car was able to escape, and the train wasn't carrying any passengers, but the accident derailed service on the main line for the rush home. Service was restored about 7, but there was still plenty of delays.
A Long Island teenager is under arrest for a gang-related shooting. 18-year-old Maurice Boyle is charged with shooting 19-year-old Ulrich Alexandra in the back. The teenager died after being shot in November. Police say the two were involved in a dispute between two rival gangs.
Some individuals had thrown a beer bottle at Boyle's house. He believed that the people that were responsible for that were members of a gang known as the Crips. Boyle's a member of a gang known as the Bloods. He arms himself with a 9mm pistol, which he kept in his home. He enlisted the aid of a friend, and he went out and headed over to Windsor Park.
Windsor Park was where the deadly shooting occurred. 2 other people were also hurt.
A man who allegedly tried to...
This just in to News Channel 4. There is some trouble for the Long Island Railroad tonight. Service on the Ronkonkoma line east of Farmingdale has been temporarily suspended. Officials tell us a non-passenger train collided with a car. No injuries reported. LIRR officials are urging commuters to use the Babylon or Montauk line as an alternative this evening.
17 people were arrested.
Held up a store on Long Island in broad daylight. This happened this morning at a Funcoland store in Carl Place. The police say that the thieves went in just before 11 o'clock. One of them had a gun. They tied up the 2 employees and then took off with an undisclosed amount of merchandise. The workers were not hurt. They eventually managed to free themselves and to call the cops. A Long Island man has been arrested for allegedly sexually abusing a 4-year-old girl. His name is Rafael Batista. He is from Hempstead. Police say that he was a friend of the girl's mother. The alleged abuse happened sometime between Thursday night and Friday morning. Batista was arrested after the girl told her mother what happened.
New York City's public schools won't be doing much.
A pair of Grinches did their holiday shopping at gunpoint today, walking off with hundreds of dollars worth of toys. Cops say the armed bandits hit a Long Island toy store just before 11, tied up the workers, and took off with a load of toys. The loot included several of the hard-to-find Sony PlayStation 2 game systems. At Lincoln Center, holiday elves are getting...
UPN 9 News.
A Long Island man is under arrest tonight, charged with sexually abusing a 4-year-old girl. The suspect is 27-year-old Rafael Batista of Hempstead. Police assaulted the daughter of an acquaintance. The little girl told her mom she was in pain, then revealed what happened. Doctors at a local hospital confirmed that the child was sexually assaulted. It was anything but fun and games for employees at a Long Island store that sells video games.
Store employees were terrorized at Funcoland after armed robbers walked in and tied them up. Police say the robbery happened this morning. The 2 robbers made off with $600. The search is still on for the suspects. There were no injuries reported.
Well, if you drive an SUV...
Well, the Jets also at 9-4 after beating the Colts 27-17. Curtis Martin with the biggest rushing performance in Jets history, gaining 203 yards on the ground.
I think I'd be a poor spokesman for the game that Curtis had yesterday. I don't think that that any words that I would put on it could say as much as what it looked like in person. Obviously, it was a magnificent effort on his part.
Oh, and before we get too far away from the talk...
Been all fire and brimstone. Meantime, the Jets continue to march towards the playoffs, led yesterday by Curtis Martin. Inspired by Bill Parcells, who told Martin it was time to get it going, the Jets running back rushed for a personal best and a team record 203 yards. This 55-yard run in the second brought the Meadowlands crowd to its feet yesterday. The Jets beat the Colts 27-17. It's their first victory over Indy in 4 tries.
I think I'd be a poor spokesman for the game that Curtis had yesterday. I don't think that that any words that I would put on it could say as much as what it looked like in person. Obviously, it was a magnificent effort on his part.
And on the schedule tonight, the Knicks will host the...
On you, Daniel Snyder. He runs business like he's running a circus.
It's going to be hard to find someone who wants to play or coach for him next season. The Jets in December seem like a good combination again this year. Yesterday's 27-17 win over the Colts, highlighted by 203 yards rushing by Curtis Martin, puts them closer to making the playoffs and their goals on target.
We planned on being in the hunt. I think to do otherwise would have been defeatist and to have put a ceiling on the team as to what they could accomplish. We set as a goal for the team before training camp started to win the AFC Eastern Division. That I didn't put that up there to BS them. I put it up there because I thought that we had good enough players on the team that if the players came together as a team and played to their potential, that the players could make it this kind of team. And I think they're the guys who have done that.
Now, they still trail the Dolphins in the AFC.
Giants are hosting the Steelers now, which is of great interest to the Jets, because if the Giants are able to beat Pittsburgh and the Jets win their game in Oakland, Gang Green would clinch a playoff spot. Got it? Well, others are superstitious about mentioning the playoffs, but Vinny Testaverde, he takes a quite different approach. Vinny?
I think if you try to pretend like it's not there, it becomes a distraction to you a little bit. So that's why you've heard me talk about it for a number of weeks, and even when we struggled, you know, it's always the main goal was to try and make it to the playoffs.
Keep it in the open, keep it in the forefront. Finally, it's Thursday night. It is time once again to reach for the outreaches in sport. Yes, it's time to enter that place we call the highlights.
Fight in earnest. Jim Fossil says they will begin the fight again Sunday night here on Channel 9 against the Dallas Cowboys. We will see. The Jets are determining the extent of Vinny Testaverde's groin injury after suffering their worst loss of the season, 31-7 at Oakland. Al Grove's gang failed to clinch a playoff spot and move into a first-place tie in the AFC East after an all-around poorly played game.
There's never any qualifier on it for me. We either win or we don't. And if we don't, my feeling about it is always exactly the same. It didn't go the way that we wanted it to, and it's important that we only play that game one time, and the game is done, and it's time for us to get ready to play the next game.
So does that mean the season is on the line Sunday against Detroit?
I'd say if you did the math, you'd come up with that conclusion.
All right, after losing out in the mic, settle into that chair where hindsight is always 20/20. Perfect. Time for the armchair quarterback, but we could not see this one coming. Rick Lyle's broken leg just added to the long list of conduct detrimental to the Jets team last night.
We had too many penalties, sacks, turnovers, missed tackles, quarterback out of the pocket, and long passes against us to win.
Not to mention passes that should have been caught but weren't. The usually reliable Richie Anderson had a case of the bobbles, and the Raiders took those chips and ran with them right to the bank. On another 4-interception night for the Jets, Vinny tossed 2 of them before leaving with a pulled groin. He's questionable for next week, and what was even more questionable, the Jets' running game. It totaled 10 yards.
I think it was those blocks and tackles and those things that had a much greater effect on the outcome of our team than a pulled muscle did. Hey, look, it's just a question if you want to win. You know, if you want to win, you do what you need to do to win, which is get the hell going.
All right, well, that's exactly.
Scale Mall in Syosset. Members of the Nassau-Suffolk Building Trades gathered in support of a plan to demolish an old factory and build a $3 million mall. They believe the project would generate new jobs and cushion the property tax.
It was back to practice day on the gridiron. The Giants can clinch the division with a win over Dallas Sunday night in Dallas, and the Jets can clinch a postseason bid with a win over the Lions. And the Jets plan to have Vinny Testaverde at the helm. The Jets quarterback was roughed up by the Raiders and suffered a groin injury last Sunday night, but he's back practicing and is listed as probable.
This is very important for us. If we win this game, we're in the playoffs, and that's our focus. We have a tough team coming in here. We're fortunate to be playing at home in front of our fans, which we're going to need, and it's an exciting time of the year for us.
All right, back to...
One win away from the P word, playoffs.
I was wondering what you were talking about there.
All right, with the victory over the Lions this Sunday, the Jets can guarantee themselves indeed a playoff berth, so it's important to have their top gun, Vinny Testaverde, ready to fire. But in their horrendous performance last Sunday out in Oakland, Vinny went down in the first half, suffering a strained groin, and when the Jets came out for the second half, Vinny remained on the bench.
I'm going to do everything in my power to be out there this week and help this team get in the playoffs. And that's my job as a quarterback, is to help this team produce wins, and if I can do that, you know, and I feel healthy enough to go, then I'm going to go.
We will see.
18-year-old Henry Castro of Roosevelt was arrested and charged with grand larceny and endangering the welfare of a child. Fortunately, the 4-year-old was returned to his father unharmed, and tonight police say there's a lesson to be learned from this story.
There's just too many people out there who might take that opportunity, get in the car, jump and go. Not only that, but you may be endangering your own child. You leave your keys in your car with the car running. That child may get out of the safety seat or the seat belt, climb into the front seat, and maybe put the car in gear, and maybe be injured in that vein.
If police discovered a similar situation,
we could make a case for endangering the welfare of a child, but that would all depend. I mean, I think most police officers, if they saw a child sleeping in the back of the car, would try to find that parent and kind of let them know, hey, listen, get back to your car, take the keys, you know, don't do this again.
as it turned out, that child, the 4-year-old, actually slept through the whole ordeal and didn't realize anything was wrong. Tonight, police say parents should use common sense. Don't leave your children alone in the car. We're live tonight in Mineola. I'm Joanne Pileggi, UPN 9 News. Back to you, Brenda.
Joanne, thanks. Good advice. Police
talk about the weather here on Fox 5 Live. Freezing rain caused problems in several parts of our area. Snow plows were out early this morning, clearing some roads in Westchester, although some commuters still had to contend with freezing rain on that ride to work today. Parts of New Jersey were just as bad. The salt spreaders were out before dawn, but that didn't stop motorists from getting into a few fender benders here and there. And on Long Island, a little bit of flooding on Northern Boulevard and Great Neck. That slowed things down, as you can see, as well. Here in the city, whether you took the bus or walked or rushed across the street, it was a wet trip to work. New Yorkers pulled out umbrellas, jumping over puddles, trying just to keep dry. So let's see what we're in for the force. Lauren.
Well, Tim, police say these teens certainly stuck close to home. In one case, we're told they pointed a pellet gun at the head of a fellow classmate. And in another case, one of the teens was a regular customer at the store she allegedly helped to rob. They are, by all accounts, unusual suspects. What police describe as 4 seemingly normal teenagers are now charged with a string of robberies, hitting up everything from ice cream shops to convenience stores.
The reason behind the robbery appears to be just a spur-of-the-moment quick cash.
Police arrested 3 Hicksville High School students, 17-year-old Joseph Hoffman, Joseph Majewski, and Layman Trayor. 18-year-old Kathleen Fitzpatrick, a student at Stony Brook University, is also under arrest. Police say she drove the getaway car. The teens are now linked to 8 robberies in Hicksville, 1 in Woodbury, and another in East Meadow. Detectives say they were armed with pellet guns and wore masks.
He stand here and show him gun to give him money.
We just got up, didn't know he had a mask on or anything. I turned around, he was holding the gun to my head, like 5 feet away.
He showed a gun. So just give me the money, you know?
Police say they got a lucky break in this case when a witness described the teens and the car they got into immediately after a robbery at this cards and gift store. Detectives put out a description of the maroon Plymouth Duster, and a police officer noticed one like it in this Burger King parking lot. He approached the suspects.
They relatively quickly realized that it was over, that their little spree was finished.
Now, police believe the motive was money, but the teens were clearly getting carried away. Detectives say they robbed 3 stores just last night. They are all charged with several counts of second-degree robbery. Reporting live from police headquarters, Mineola, Long Island, Lauren DeFranco, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Lauren. As expected, the
dose of wintry weather overnight, creating dangerous road conditions during the morning rush hour. Here in the city, the precipitation was mostly rain, but lots of it. It was a messy, gloomy morning on the way to work or school. In Great Neck, the storm brought road and street flooding, and that could have been much worse. Upstate, Rochester and Syracuse received 6 inches of snow. And in Rockland County, slippery conditions sent a bus sliding into an embankment. There were no passengers on board. We're going to take a moment and check in with Bill Evans right now to get the latest. Bill.
David, here are the 2 storms. Barrett, the PBA in Nassau County, Long Island, did something fantastic. They gave $5,000 to a family that really needs it. The Connors. Mr. and Mrs. Connors have triplets. They're all boys, and they each have severe disabilities. We first brought you their story last week. They need the money to put an extension on their house to make room for the different types of therapy the boys need. Some local contractors have already volunteered to help with the construction.
Well, just in case you didn't know it.
All right, back to the Pro Bowl, and the Jets with 3 players going to Hawaii for sure. 3 more as alternates, running back Curtis Martin, safety Victor Green, and cornerback Aaron Glenn. Making the AFC squad, fullback Richie Anderson voted to the Pro Bowl for the first time in his 8-year career. He's the league's leading receiver among running backs. Linebacker Mo Lewis is going for the 3rd straight season, and it's the 2nd year in a row for center Kevin Mawai. But after Sunday's in Oakland, much like the Giants, the Jets focused on this Sunday's game. They beat the Lions, and they're in the playoffs.
This is very important for us. If we win this game, we're in the playoffs, and that's our focus. We have a tough team coming in here. We're fortunate to be playing at home in front of our fans, which we're going to need, and it's an exciting time of the year for us.
All right, train fire in Babylon that could create some major delays. John Del Giorno is above the scene in Newscopter 7 with details. John.
And Tim, a train fire at about 4 o'clock this afternoon will affect service on the Babylon branch tonight. These are live pictures here of the Babylon train station where a fire broke out on board a train this afternoon. We can show you the scene. We have tape from less than an hour ago. This fire broke out in the station just after 4 o'clock. Now, passengers were on board the train, but they were evacuated safely while the firefighters battled this blaze. There are 3 tracks here at the Babylon station. Service on all 3 tracks was suspended. Power was shut down. LIRR now telling us service to 2 out of those 3 tracks has been restored. Service now running on the Babylon branch with delays.
RR's Babylon line can expect delays this evening, and that's because of fire that broke out on a train in the Babylon station late this afternoon. No one was on board the train at the time. The fire will affect service in both directions. No word on just how long.
Is dead after his mattress caught fire. He lived on the 4th floor of an apartment building on Terrace Avenue. Firefighters say that he managed to pull his smoldering mattress into the hallway, but they say that someone else threw clothes on top of the mattress. That made the fire worse. Who died has not been identified. The fire spread throughout the 4th floor. 7 people had to be treated for burns and smoke inhalation.
A deadly DWI accident in Baldwin Harbor, Long Island. Gabriel Almonte was killed when a car slammed into his truck. The truck was knocked into a gas pump. The driver of the car that hit him was charged with driving while intoxicated. He's 22-year-old Paul Raimondi. He's recovering from his injuries at a local hospital. A freak accident.
They came from all over, family, friends, and fellow clergymen. 4 cardinals, 42 bishops, deacons, priests, all saying their goodbyes to Bishop James McHugh. More than 1,000 people packed St. Agnes Cathedral for the 2-hour-long funeral mass. New York Archbishop Edward Egan was the main celebrant, while McHugh's close friend, Bernard Cardinal Law of Boston, delivered the homily.
On first impression, people could be intimidated by his strong intellect and no-nonsense style. Those who knew him better saw integrity, humility, and a wonderful sense of humor.
Cardinal Law told parishioners that McHugh had wanted John Cardinal O'Connor to
investigating a disturbing crime on Long Island, the double murder of an elderly couple in their home. And this is not the first time a murder has occurred in that same house. Long Island correspondent Lauren DeFranco is live in Mineola with more. Lauren.
Well, Roz, tonight investigators are still on the scene here trying to figure out who killed Thomas and Ruthie Mitchell. We're told their lives were punctuated by tragedy after tragedy, and 7 years ago, their own son killed their great-grandson at this very same house. Homicide detectives spent the day searching for evidence in the brutal murders of Thomas and Ruthie Mitchell. Police say the elderly couple appeared to be beaten to death inside their home at 318 Park Avenue. Last night at around 9:30, a nephew discovered the bodies.
He comes around to the back of the house. He finds the door open. When he enters the home, he finds the body of his aunt, Ruth Mitchell, in a doorway between the kitchen and the living room.
Police later found Thomas Mitchell in the basement.
Oh, I feel awful. Mr. Mitchell's a sweet man.
Very sweet.
Oh, I feel terrible. He smoked a cigar all the time. He came in the post office. Really nice man.
The Mitchell family has been scarred by a series of bizarre and disturbing events. 2 of their sons were killed and a daughter committed suicide. In 1993, the Mitchells' mentally ill son, Mark, flew into a violent and unforgettable rage. Using a machete, he hacked his sister's 17-month-old grandson to death and seriously injured a 3-year-old. This was the emotional scene at the time of the murder.
Mark Anthony Mitchell is dead.
Come on, I know how you
I'm going to
feel.
kill him. He did my brothers and sisters this way. He got away with it. He's dead.
Neighbors remember Mark Mitchell as threatening, a karate fanatic who had dozens of run-ins with police. But friends painted a much different picture of 72-year-old Ruthie and 74-year-old Thomas.
I'm kind of shocked to hear this, especially with them, 2 elderly people like that. Yeah, it's a real shock. We'll be praying for the family.
I feel kind of lonesome about it because I just miss them because we used to go walking in the daytime.
Now, police tell us there were no signs of forced entry, but the house was ransacked, and the couple's 1994 green Mercury Sable is now missing. The Mitchells are survived by 1 son who is serving time in prison and a daughter who lives in the area. Reporting live from Roosevelt, Long Island, Lauren DeFranco, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Lauren. One of the things you worry about when you're commuting to and from work, but for hundreds of thousands who ride the Long Island Railroad, that is not the case. And tonight, stunning allegations from those who patrol the trains. Crime has more than doubled. One of the hardest hit areas is Rockville Center, and that's where Michelle Charlesworth has the story for us. Michelle?
Good evening, Bill. Well, specifically what they're talking about is commuters being held up at gun or knife point on platforms like the one behind me, or getting back to their car and finding that it's been broken into. Now, MTA cops say it's happening because they've been reassigned to other stations, other platforms, and that something else is happening as well, that, quote, minority stations are being ignored. This complaint doesn't come from riders, it comes from cops.
It appears to me that a lot of the minority community train stations, such as Amityville, Freeport, Wyandanch, are being the hardest hit.
Black or Latino communities?
Yes.
They don't have police officers there?
There are very little police officers in Nassau and Suffolk County, but it seems to me that the minority stations are taking the brunt of these serious felonies with no response.
Ray Gimler held this news conference today to get a response. He says the stops where crime has shot up are Rockville Center, Babylon, Amityville, and Freeport. He calls 3 of those 4, quote, minority stops. Natalia Thomas is a daily commuter from Freeport and often rides the train alone around 10 p.m.
You need some type of supervision. What is a camera, maybe, but...
So do you see police officers up here or no?
No, never.
Never?
Never.
This commuter agreed, then responded to the allegation that minority stops were underprotected.
It makes me angry in a way because then I feel it's not fair, but then I've gotten off at stops that are in like other areas, and I don't see them there either. The Long Island Railroad, period.
Larry Silverman, president of the Commuter Council, doesn't like to hear that either and turned the clock back to 1993 to remind riders why police presence is so important.
I've often thought that if Colin Ferguson from time to time had seen a uniformed officer on a Long Island Railroad train, who knows, maybe he would have decided it was a stupid idea.
An MTA spokesperson did get back to us to talk about this. They say that they did give us stats on the entire region, but they were unable to give us specific numbers specific to Long Island. They did say minority stops are not underprotected, and they say they've done their own research, that more cops have been added to the eastern region in the last 2 years, and according to what they've heard from commuters, they feel safer and that they see more cops. But the MTA cops are still going to be handing out this booklet starting tomorrow morning. Their advice to commuters: do not ride alone, don't ride at night, and if someone approaches you, do not fight them off. We're live in Long Island. Michelle Charlesworth, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Michelle, thank you very much. Watch what you do when you're in New York. New York City cops are definitely watching. The number of arrests for so-called quality of life crimes is at 16% so far this year. Among the biggest increases, arrests for pot smoking. 17,000 more than last year. But the biggest complaint to the city hotline is still about loud noise.
And there are complaints about crime on the Long Island Railroad coming from the police union. Is the LIRR turning into the crime train? Patricia Wu has been checking out the story. She's at Penn Station. Patricia.
Well, Rosanna, according to the stats released today, felony crime is up more than 100% on the railroad and nearly 150% here at Penn Station. But commuters tell a different story. For these weary commuters, crime takes a back seat. everyone we spoke with said they were surprised to hear of the rising crime rate on trains and at stations.
On a daily basis, being a commuter, I feel completely safe.
I find that hard to believe. I travel every day, like so many other commuters, and never really noticed anything but more cops on the beat.
While uniformed police officers are easy to spot at Penn Station, commuters do say few are seen on the trains or at other stations.
Let's say there's a problem and one of the conductors needs to speak to, call, radio a police officer, then that's about the only time I see one. But when everything's going smooth, I never see them, ever.
Some commuters say they would like to see that change.
Just because I think a man in uniform or a woman in uniform would definitely be a deterrent against crime.
The president of the Long Island Railroad Commuter Council agrees.
So there's no one there. It's a license for young people and for vandals to do mischief. And in late night trains particularly, we have a problem with rowdiness, with pot smoking that is undeterred.
Others say the lack of uniformed patrol officers on the trains and the rising crime rate are management's fault.
It's my belief that the management of the police department, with no transit-related policing experience, is unqualified to deploy properly the amount of resources they're given to protect Long Island Railroad commuters.
Now, the MTA spokesperson said he believes the stats released today are wrong, but the police union says they're sticking by their numbers, and starting tomorrow, they're handing out brochures with safety tips to commuters. Reporting live from Penn Station, Patricia Wu, Fox 5 News. Now back to you, Harry.
All right, Patricia, thanks.
Ahora buscado por las autoridades, es un joven entre los 20 y los 30 años. La uniformada investiga además los detalles del incidente. Y a propósito de estos hechos de violencia, las autoridades del condado de Nassau presentaron hoy cargos criminales contra 10 presuntos miembros de una pandilla hispana. Se trata de la banda conocida como SWP, cuyos integrantes son mayormente de origen salvadoreño. La pandilla SWP es rival de la también banda Mara Salvatrucha. Según las autoridades, los miembros de la SWP realizaban sus delitos en nuestra área desde 1998. 7 de los sospechosos fueron arrestados hoy en Long Island. Bueno, y este es Ryan Wagner, uno de los 2 hombres acusados de haber golpeado casi hasta la muerte a los 2 jornaleros mexicanos de Long Island. El joven regresó a corte hoy en busca de que se le fijara una fianza para quedar en libertad. Está tras las rejas desde el 10 de octubre, pero la petición le fue denegada, así que permanecerá preso en la cárcel del condado de Suffolk hasta el día de su juicio.
Authorities on Long Island say they have now put a big dent in the problem of criminal gangs.
A special task force dedicated to ridding the streets of gangs announced a major bust that's landed 10 alleged gang members behind bars on charges that include murder. Jill Conway is in our Long Island bureau tonight. She has that story from Hempstead.
Over the course of the last 2 years, this gang has engaged in a reign of violence and terror on the streets of Long Island.
U.S. Attorney Loretta Lynch heads a federal, state, and local task force aimed at taking gang members off the streets. A task force that has in part achieved its goal in Hempstead. 10 members of the El Salvadoran immigrant gang known as Salvadorians with Pride, or SWP, were arrested today and now face a slew of murder, assault, and armed robbery charges. Their targets were members of their rival gang, MS-13.
The SWP's goals were clear: to attack and to kill members of MS-13.
Prosecutors claim that innocent bystanders were killed in these bloody territorial feuds. At the time of their arrest, some of the gang members were found, we're told, in possession of these loaded guns. But despite this large number of arrests, the Hempstead School Board president says gangs are not a big problem in the schools here.
There is some gang involvement, but not as much as they're making it out to be in our communities.
Task force officials say there are thousands of gang members on Long Island, and they tell us that many parents have no idea that their children are involved.
How many kids do you think in high school are part of a gang?
About most of them.
Ronald King says he used to be a member of the gang Crips, and he admits to us that it's nearly impossible to leave the gang.
Once you in it, you stuck.
So you're still in it? You're still considered in it?
I'm still considered, and they won't let me get my life together.
King is now trying to help other teens find an alternative to gang life.
I'm sending a clear and decisive message that we will not
tolerate this. We have declared war on crime and gang in this community.
If convicted of murder, the SWPs face the death penalty or life behind bars. In Hempstead, Long Island, I'm Jill Conway for the WB11 News at 10.
Well, it's become a new social trend, and now a network of baby-safe havens is now operating throughout Brooklyn, where mothers can leave their unwanted newborns without being prosecuted.
Island, 8 members of violent gangs are facing serious charges tonight that range from drugs to murder, and now prosecutors pledging that gangs will no longer control the streets. Long Island correspondent Lauren DeFranco has the story. She's live in Hempstead for us tonight. Lauren?
Well, Bill, federal, state, and local officials held a news conference here in Hempstead today to announce those arrests made just this morning, and we're told federal authorities got involved in this investigation because innocent people started dying. Federal prosecutors say Ricardo Elmer Molina is one of 8 members of a violent street gang known as the Salvadorans with Pride, now under indictment for a series of vicious crimes, including murder.
Over the course of the last 2 years, this gang has engaged in a reign of violence and terror on the streets of Long Island as they waged a bloody war with a rival street gang.
Ironically, SWP was initially formed as a civic group to help their fellow El Salvadorans tackle the problems generated by another Hispanic gang known as the MS-13s. But prosecutors say by 1998, SWP had undergone a radical change and turned to violence. Last December, here at the former El Paraiso nightclub in Hempstead, prosecutors say members of the SWP murdered an innocent man because they believed he was a member of teens. Incidents like that forced local officials to ask for state and federal assistance to get a handle on the growing problem.
My friends get beat up because they don't want to be in gangs, and a lot of my friends, they'll just back down or they'll just be in a gang, and it's not always everybody's fault if they're in a gang.
13-year-old Trinae Robinson was one of dozens of people from Hempstead who attended today's news conference to address their concerns and talk about solutions.
I think a lot of schools need to put in after-school program for everybody, not just for a certain sport or something.
And local officials tell us they have already initiated a number of programs to prevent teenagers from getting involved in gang activity. And those men arrested today were arraigned on a number of serious charges. Reporting live from Hempstead, Long Island, Lauren DeFranco.
Melanthias Valera with the shooting. A Long Island man is dead after he lost control of his SUV early this morning. It happened on Veterans Memorial Highway in Hauppauge. Police say the driver was Joseph Bartone, who was 35 years old. His Suburban hit a utility pole and overturned. Bartone was pronounced dead at the scene. Suffolk police are trying to figure out what caused him to lose control.
Well, flu season. The owner of a liquor store on Long Island has been charged with trying to destroy his competition by allegedly bombing them out of business. Andrea Day is in Huntington with the details on this story. Andrea, what can you tell us?
Well, good morning, Mario. This ends a 2.5-year investigation, and now the owner of that store, Billy Peterson, is facing federal charges. This morning, it was business as usual at Crazy Billy's. The Deer Park liquor store was wide open, but owner Billy Peterson was nowhere to be found, and his Dix Hills home was shut tight. Yesterday, Peterson told a judge he wasn't guilty after he was charged with plotting to firebomb 2 competitive stores. The Suffolk DA says Peterson was involved in a trade organization determined to set minimum prices for booze. But when 2 stores refused to raise their rates, he got angry and, according to federal charges, plotted to have them firebombed. On December 14th, back in '95, the explosives were fired through stores in Huntington and East Northport.
At the time, I was down in Palm Beach, Florida at the Bale & Al's Country Club. It was on a big screen TV, a news flash about bombings in Long Island, fire bombings in Long Island. I realized at that time it was my buildings. So immediately I went to the phone and I called into the office, and they said, oh yeah, it's a major problem. It's the middle of the night, the fire marshal's already calling here. It's crazy. So one of my people came down to each building to try to secure it. This building was all right, though, because the bomb had bounced off the window. We have thermopane double insulated glass here, so the bomb never made it through the window. But down there was single pane glass. It went through the window, went off, exploded, but at that point, the sprinkler system kicked in and put it out.
Now, that store was completely destroyed. Peterson was released yesterday on $250,000 bond. There were 5 other people charged. They allegedly worked with Peterson. For now, we're live in Huntington, Long Island. I'm Andrea Day, Fox 5 News. Mario, back to you.
I should clarify. The Suffolk County District Attorney has just announced the indictments of 5 people today in connection with the fire bombings of 2 liquor stores 5 years ago. The indictments are the result of a 2.5-year investigation called Operation Firewater. Indicted as the ringleader of the conspiracy was William Peterson, a liquor store owner himself, who allegedly headed a consortium of Long Island liquor stores. Prosecutors say Peterson ordered the fire bombings when the 2 liquor store owners refused to go along with his plans to raise liquor prices on Long Island.
Long Island reporter Carolyn Gussoff explains.
Crazy Billy claims his liquor prices are always your best buy, so prosecutors say he didn't like it when a neighboring liquor store started to undersell him. That's when the threats allegedly began.
The message, you better fall into line and charge the same prices as all the other liquor stores on Long Island are charging.
Were their prices that much lower?
Yes, they were substantially lower. They were doing a bigger volume of business.
The threats were being made against the Herman family, which owns 2 liquor stores in Suffolk. Prosecutors say what came next were terror tactics, shots fired through their store windows, and in 1995, the firebombing of both of their stores on the same day.
To have a devastating arson fire occur in 2 of your businesses in the middle of December, you know, the week before Christmas or 10 days before Christmas, is a devastating business calamity.
Today, prosecutors announced 6 arrests, including the alleged ringleader, Crazy Billy William Peterson. Operation Firewater, as they called it, took years to solve, but they say patience paid off.
We can't put up with and we will not tolerate terrorist tactics against the economic lifeblood of the country, the nation, and this county.
I'm very happy that I can sleep better at night knowing that there have been arrests made.
Prosecutors say it was Crazy Billy William Peterson who several years ago organized liquor store owners into a consortium to set prices. He called the group price fighters, but the Hermans refused to go along. They say Peterson, who lives in this sprawling Dix Hills home, went to extreme measures to wipe out his competition. Now he'll face stiff penalties if convicted. Conspiracy and extortion charges carry a potential life sentence. Carolyn Gussoff, News Channel 4.
Blaze in North Patchogue. This fire started around 5 o'clock at an auto mall on Route 112 near Lakewood. It also destroyed several nearby apartment buildings. There was 1 minor injury, a Suffolk County water official who bumped his head. The Red Cross is helping to put up families who were burned out tonight. An accident caused a city ambulance on arson charges. The group was allegedly run by this man, William Peterson, the owner of Crazy Billy's liquor store in Deer Park. The DA alleges that Peterson and his gang firebombed 2 neighboring rival liquor stores in 1995 because they were undercutting his prices. A deadly shootout in Philadelphia tonight.
And landed on a nearby pond.
Smart ducks. Well, Long Island traditionally gets less snow than the rest of the region, but it was enough to jam up a big rig that jackknifed on the Long Island Expressway. Plows were out, though, in force, sanding and salting the highways, and if you didn't shovel your walk and driveway already, be warned. The icy mix out there is now going to make it tough going tomorrow.
And anyone would feel now that after all this we deserve...
Busted for selling phony green cards. Her name is Arcelia Zaraway. She's 45 years old. Police got a tip store in Hempstead. So they sent in an undercover officer with a video camera and caught Ms. Zaraway on tape selling phony green cards and Social Security cards for $150 each.
We shut her down. We don't know how many cards she sold, unfortunately, before then. But this is a problem in Hempstead. The INS is aware. We are aware that numerous locations in Hempstead are alleged to be selling the fraudulent cards, and we're working on attempting to locate other locations.
Ms. Zaraway has already pleaded guilty. As part of a deal, she will only have to spend 6 months in jail. She could have gotten up to 7 years.
Straight. 2 firefighters suffered minor injuries. And firefighters on Long Island are saying goodbye to one of their own today. 39-year-old Greg McLaughlin suffered a heart attack while exercising at the Engine Company 302 Firehouse in South Ozone Park on Thursday morning. The 14-year veteran leaves behind a wife and 3 young children. McLaughlin's funeral will be held at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Church in Massapequa Park tomorrow morning.
The man charged with the blood...
Logan, thank you.
Tonight, police want your help to catch two teenage girls wanted in an attack at a Long Island mall. They say the girls got into a fight with a young woman who worked at Sears in the South Shore Mall Court where the fight took place. Then back in October, this all happened. Today, police released a sketch of one of the attackers. Police say the suspect slashed the woman in the face with a razor.
They're described as light-skinned black females, approximately 16 years of age. Both were wearing the same outfit. They had a beige-colored black and white bandana or kerchief on their head with a white T-shirt and gray pants.
Police are asking anyone with information to call them.
Tonight, a desperate search is on for missing a good man is hard to find. Apparently not the Jets. On today, the one-year anniversary of his buying the team, owner Woody Johnson flew in Terry Bradway to interview for the vacant GM position at 9 o'clock this morning. At 4 this afternoon, he was introduced at a press conference as the replacement for Bill Parcells. Bradway was a scout with the Giants in the Super Bowl years. He spent the last 9 with Kansas City, most recently as their vice president of player personnel.
This is a good football program. This is a good football team that is not far away from making a push. And obviously this year only one game away from making it to the playoffs. So this is a good situation for me to be in.
A lot of the people that we checked with in the league over the last period of time have all come up with praise for Terry and the job that he's done, and you know, he sounds almost too good to be true.
Now, supposedly former Carolina Panthers coach Dom Capers is Bradway's top choice to walk the sidelines as head coach for the Jets.
And along with a co-defendant in the Arizona case, are out of jail on bond. John?
Well, Cynthia, the hunt is on for the man who robbed 2 gas stations on Long Island. Here he is hitting one in East Patchogue last month, waving his gun, demanding money. He also robbed a station in Bellport. This guy's about 5'10" with a thin build. He was wearing a dark mask and a hooded sweatshirt. Police in Suffolk County want you to call them if you have any idea who he is. And the police are also looking for this man. He robbed 13 banks on Long Island, mostly in Nassau County. He always wears a baseball cap, carries a Newsday under his arm to hide a note demanding money. He even hit 2 banks in one day.
Here's Sal. The Jets putting some of their brain trust back together today.
New era. It's been 32 years since the Jets won.
Is that all?
Well, that's it. Only 32 years. Terry Bradway is the Jets' new general manager, replacing Bill Parcells, who left the Jets team in better shape than he found it. Bradway spent the last 9 years with the Kansas City Chiefs. He's 45 years old, a Jersey guy who's been in football for 18 years, who was once a Giant scout. Jets owner Woody Johnson moved swiftly because he was impressed with Bradway, who discussed his plans today.
All in all, this is a pretty good football team. And I feel like I came from one in Kansas City also that was kind of missing a few pieces, but the key is the development of Chad Pennington because he's got a very bright future. We liked him coming out of college, and I think he's proven that he's got what it takes to be a winning quarterback in this league.
The hot rumor is that Bradway will hire Dom Capers as the Jets' new head coach. Bill Parcells and Harry Carson are finalists for consideration at the Pro Football's Hall of Fame. The Cleveland Browns fired head coach Chris Palmer after only 5 wins in 2 seasons. Unless
well, the Jets certainly didn't wait very long.
I don't think they could. They needed to get going right away.
Get the ball moving.
That's right. Just 2 days after Bill Parcells handed in his resignation, the New York Jets got themselves a new flight commander today when Terry Bradway, the vice president of player personnel for the Kansas City Chiefs, was introduced as Gang Green's general manager.
I know this thing happened relatively quickly, but I know on their end they did their research, and on my end I also did my research. And I feel very good about entering this situation. This is a good football program. This is a good football team that is not far away from making a push. And obviously this year only one game away from making it to the playoffs.
But the big question for Terry Bradway is this. Who's he going to hire to succeed Al Groh as head coach so that the Jets don't fall a game short of getting into the playoffs next season?
I think time is of the essence in a sense that, you know, trying to put a staff together is critical because the head coach is only as good as his assistants. And so I think we'd like to move on it quickly, but again, at the same time, making sure that we do our homework and make the right decision.
And Bradway does have good credentials, by the way. He spent 6 years, I believe it was, 7 years with the Giants from '86 to '72 as a scout.
Yeah, and we're hearing Dom Caper is maybe the leading candidate right now?
You know what? Let's talk.
Let's wait and see. Well,
thank you, Jim. Police on Long Island are asking for the public's help to find a man who is robbing gas stations and caught on tape in the act. Surveillance video from one of his 2 robberies shows him walking into this gas station with a gun and then cleaning out the cash register. He robbed one gas station that was in Bellport on December 12th. Then 6 days later, he struck again, this time in East Patchogue.
On Wall Street, technology stocks
kidnapping and raping a little girl. Renee Escobar is 20. He's in the red shirt here. Detectives say that he abducted a 12-year-old girl in October and was having sex with her at 2 different hideouts in Westbury and Roosevelt. Then police say that he took the girl to North Carolina to evade police, but cops tracked. They arrested him. Meanwhile, police on Long Island are searching.
Thank you, Lucy. A man on Long Island is under arrest right now, accused of raping and kidnapping a young girl, 20-year-old Renee Escobar. He's the one wearing the red sweater here. He is accused of raping the 12-year-old girl several times at gunpoint last year. Then in October, police say he kidnapped the girl, taking her to North Carolina. The girl was eventually found there, and Escobar was arrested later in Westbury.
Kidnapping and rape of a 12-year-old girl. Police say Renee Escobar, shown here in the red shirt, had sex with the 12-year-old girl several times, each time threatening her with a gun. And they say Escobar took the girl to North Carolina. North Carolina police found the girl and got her home.
A man had to be rushed to a Long Island hospital after he was...
9 News.
Tonight, a radical environmental group is claiming responsibility for torching construction equipment on Long Island. 2 vehicles were damaged when the vandals struck at the Milos Construction Company in Suffolk County. The group ELF, or Environmental Liberation Front, is claiming responsibility. ELF has targeted construction sites across the country, opposing development of unused land.
And time now for New York's most comprehensive. Tonight, police on Long Island are hunting for a gunman who spread terror at an off-track betting parlor.
He got away with the cash after wounding a Good Samaritan who tried to stop him. Jim Gately has the latest on this story.
The off-track betting office in Farmingdale was busy late yesterday when some people noticed a strange-looking man hanging around inside.
He looked odd, but not enough to send up any radar signals or anything to that effect.
It turned out the man was wearing a blonde wig and fake mustache and suddenly walked up to these back counters where the bets are made.
The subject produced a silver handgun and a knapsack and demanded the cash that was available. He then fled with $8,000.
As he went to escape, he walked this way towards the door, but then a customer tried to stop the thief by tackling him. The robber fell, got up, and fired 2 shots. One hit the counter. Here's the bullet hole. The other shot hit the patron in the abdomen.
He was laying on the floor and he was bleeding. I had put pressure on where the entry wound was and held him there.
The man who tried to stop the robber remains hospitalized tonight. Police are not giving out his name because he's a witness in the case, and especially since the gunman is still on the loose. But police add, as heroic as his actions were, it is not a good idea.
We would ask the public, if they are a witness to a crime, to become a good witness, but not to actively become involved in attempting to stop a robbery.
The gunman eventually ran out to a waiting getaway car, and he and the driver escaped down Hempstead Turnpike. Tonight, the betting in OTB continues, and so does the search for the gunman. And while there are cameras and monitors on the horses, police do not have a surveillance tape of the robbery. In Farmingdale, Jim Gately, UPN 9 News.
French officials now say that the...
Long Island, a hunt for the robber of an off-track betting parlor continues tonight. Police say the gunman, disguised in a wig and fake mustache, escaped with $8,000 from the parlor in Farmingdale. A customer tried to stop the man but was shot in the stomach. That customer is in critical condition tonight.
A warning to...
A former teacher from Long Island has been arrested on sex abuse charges. His name is Anthony Correnti. He's 26 years old and lives in West Islip. His last teaching job was in Seaford. Police tell us he sent sexually explicit pictures of himself to a 13-year-old girl over the internet. Then he arranged a face-to-face meeting where police say he sexually abused her. Mr. Correnti does not have a prior record.
Well, the state attorney general is going after what he calls...
News Channel 4. Sue, back to you.
John, thank you. Tonight on Long Island, a Huntington High School student is recovering after being stabbed. It happened at the school this morning around 9. Police say 17-year-old William Ulloa, a 10th grader, stabbed a 14-year-old 9th grader. The 9th grader was taken to Huntington Hospital with wounds to his lower back. He's in stable condition. Ulloa was arrested and charged as an adult. Or he's charged with assault, excuse me. Police have no motive for the attack.
Tomorrow, American Airlines flight attendants say they will be trial because there isn't enough evidence against him.
Police in Nassau County are looking for the driver who struck and killed a woman and kept on going. Marjorie Cordero died. She was a jockey. She was also the wife of Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero. The accident happened about a half-mile from their home. Linda Schmidt is near the scene of the accident in Greenvale. Linda.
Well, Rosanna, we're standing in front of the area where the accident happened here last night. Now, this is Glen Cove Road behind me, which is normally a very busy road. It's 4 lanes. And police out here are hoping that someone saw something and can help. Family and friends gather at the home of Angel Cordero in Greenvale, Long Island, to comfort one another and try to cope with their sudden loss. Nassau County Police say Cordero's wife, Marjorie, was killed by a hit-and-run driver. Daily News photographer Dan Farrell is a close friend of the couple and covered Angel Cordero, a Hall of Fame jockey.
This is really a tragedy. He's going to be devastated. I can't imagine him coping with this, what's happened to him.
Police say they were first called to the Cordero's home about 7:30 last night.
There was an argument between her and her family. She wanted to leave to go to Manhattan to meet a friend. Her family did not want her to leave. The cops responded. She has had a prior alcohol problem. But in last night's case, it didn't appear to the police officers that she was intoxicated. She left under her free will.
About 2 hours later, at 9:45, police say Cordero was run down on Glen Cove Road across the street from the Greenvale train station. Police say she was hit at a high rate of speed. They're looking for a black Ford.
Vehicle's got front end damage, the light and the front end damage, yes.
All Dan Farrell and others have now are fond memories.
I used to be out in the racetrack early in the morning when Margie and Angel would be out there on their ponies, and they'd always ride together as they took the horses to the racetrack, and they'd be holding hands as they're riding their horses, and it was just it was a very nice, lovely scene.
A devastating loss indeed for this family. Now, if you were around here about 9:45 last night, that's on Glen Cove Road here in Greenvale, Long Island, you're asked to call the Nassau County Police with any information that you have. That number is 1-800-244-TIPS. The number, once again, 1-800-244-TIPS. We're live in Greenvale, Long Island. I'm Linda Schmidt, Fox 5 News. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Linda, thank you. Well, the biggest football game of the year is just 5 days away.
Long Island are hunting for a hit-and-run driver of a Hall of Fame jockey. Marjorie Cordero was killed while walking near her home. Logan Crawford joins us live from Nassau County Police Headquarters with the latest. Logan?
Brenda, Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero knows a lot about winning and losing, but nothing in his long, illustrious career prepared him for the loss he suffered last night, the loss of his wife to a hit-and-run driver, a tragedy he desperately tried to prevent. Inside this North Shore Nassau County house, loved ones of Marjorie Cordero are gathered. They're in pain, hurt by the loss of the 41-year-old wife of Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero. Cordero's wife attempted to cross the very wide, very busy Glen Cove Road last night and was struck and killed by a driver who didn't even bother to stop. A 41-year-old woman struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver. It's a tragic story made even more tragic by this fact. Her family tried to stop her from going out last night. You see, police say Marjorie Cordero had a drinking problem, and when she wanted to leave her home last night, her family tried to stop her by calling the police. They weren't able to do so.
They argued with her. They didn't want her to leave. And so the police were called to try to prevent her from leaving the house. But of course, without reason, we can't detain a mature woman from leaving the house.
Police say over the last year, they've been called to the house 4 or 5 times with the same request. Help us keep Marjorie from going out.
She's had some alcohol problems in the past. She's been in rehabilitation. She's been in Alcohol Anonymous, and they felt that for her safety, they would like her to stay home.
Last night, neither her husband, family, or police could persuade her from heading into the city to meet a friend. About a quarter mile from her house near the train station, Marjorie was run over by someone driving a black Ford.
She was struck at a fairly high rate of speed.
obvious from the damage to the vehicle. She's not a big woman, so it would indicate some excessive speed.
Right now, just a very brief description on the car. A black Ford traveling southbound on Glen Cove Road at around 9:45 last night. We're live in Nassau County. Logan Crawford, UPN 9 News. Roland?
All right, Logan, thank you. We have a warning.
This is the news at 5:30.
The wife of Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero was killed by a hit-and-run driver on Long Island. Good evening, I'm Angela Ray.
I'm Todd McDermott. Marjorie Cordero was hit as she tried to cross Glen Cove Road in Greenvale last night.
CBS 2 reporter Annika Pergament joins us live on Long Island with the very latest. Annika.
Good evening. At this point, Nassau police don't know whether Marjorie Cordero deliberately stepped in front of that car or whether she was accidentally struck. However, either way, they are looking for the driver of a black Ford which left the scene of that accident. They say they know because of evidence left at the scene that at this point, the car would have front-end damage. All day, family and friends have been gathering at the Cordero home in Greenvale to mourn the loss of Marjorie Cordero. The 41-year-old wife of Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero Jr. was killed last night in a hit-and-run.
Everyone's very upset. It's a deep loss. It's a great loss.
Marjorie Cordero was the mother of 5. Police say she had a history of alcohol problems, and in the last year they had been called to her house several times when arguments would escalate. One such call came at 8 o'clock last night.
She's been in rehabilitation. She's been in Alcohol Anonymous, and they felt that for her safety they would like her to stay home.
An hour and a half later, she was fatally struck at the corner of Glen Cove Road and Osborne Lane, a quarter of a mile from her home. Police don't know where she was going, but she may have been coming here to the Greenvale train station, perhaps to catch a train into Manhattan.
There was an argument between her and her family. She wanted to leave to go to Manhattan to meet a friend. Her family did not want her to leave.
Cordero's friends today are remembering a great jockey in her own right who had earned more than $1 million when she retired from racing in 1985.
The sweetest person in the world. She has so many accidents on the highway, stopping like for a bird or dog, and she was amazing.
Because of Cordero's love for animals, her family is asking that in lieu of flowers, donations be made to an organization that cares for retired racehorses. It is called the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. It's at P.O. Box 153 in Albertson, New York, the zip code 11507. Once again tonight, police looking to question the driver of a black Ford that would have front-end damage. We are live in Nassau County. Annika Pergament, CBS 2.
Annika, thank you. That massive...
Tonight, Nassau County police are looking for a hit-and-run driver responsible for the death of the wife of Hall of Fame jockey Angel Cordero. 41-year-old Marjorie Cordero was struck last night in Greenvale. Cordero, a former jockey herself, was crossing Glen Cove Road when she was hit by a black Ford. The driver of the car then fled the scene. Mrs. Cordero was taken to North Shore University Hospital, where she later died.
News Channel 4 has learned that MTA... While they were still on the force, the two were fired last year for perjury. If they're convicted of these new charges, Jordan could face up to 30 years in prison. Police in Nassau County continue to search tonight for the driver they say left the scene of a hit-and-run accident last night, an accident that killed 41-year-old Marjorie Cordero, the wife of the famous jockey Angel Cordero. Kathy Hobbs has that story.
Everyone's very upset. It's a deep loss. It's a great loss.
The pain of losing a mother, a wife, shared by those who came to Glenville, Long Island to comfort the family of 41-year-old Marjorie Cordero. Last night, police say a hit-and-run driver ended Cordero's life as she crossed Glen Cove Road. A sparse description of the vehicle only revealing it was a dark Ford. Authorities say the details leading up to the accident begin at the home Marjorie shared with her husband, well-known Hall of Fame racing jockey Angel Cordero, and their children, and a heated argument that brought police here just before 8 o'clock.
There was an argument between her and her family. She wanted to leave to go to Manhattan to meet a friend. Her family did not want her to leave.
Police say Marjorie Cordero left her home sometime around 8 o'clock. Then there are roughly 2 hours that neither police or her family can explain where she was. It was just before 10 o'clock that Marjorie Cordero killed as she crossed this busy street. Just down the block, from where she lived. On the racing circuit, Marjorie Cordero was a well-respected agent, former jockey, and trainer.
It's don't cross the law as Cordero.
Her husband, Angel Cordero, famous for winning prestigious races like the Kentucky Derby and Breeders' Cup. But police talk of a dark side of arguments that repeatedly brought police to the Cordero home and of a woman who battled to stay sober.
She's had some alcohol problems in the past. She's been in rehabilitation. She's been in Alcohol Anonymous, and they felt that for her safety, they would like her to stay home.
Police say it's unclear if Cordero had been drinking at the time of the accident.
I never knew she had a problem like that.
Daily News photographer Dan Farrell has known the Cordero family for nearly 2 decades, documenting their long careers.
The two of them would be on ponies and riding out to the racetrack. As they brought their horses out there, they'd be hand in hand on the horses, and they were a very close couple.
Now, as loved ones mourn their loss, police still search for a killer, a driver who hit an innocent woman and left 3 children without a mother. On Long Island, Kathy Hobbs, WB11, News at 10.
George W. Bush got down to presidential business today and made good on one of his...
Thank you, Dora. A Nassau County cop is on the wrong side of the law this morning, accused of sexually molesting a woman. He was arraigned this morning. NJ Burkett is live in Mineola with the details. NJ?
And Steve, as you know, detectives here in Nassau County have been investigating allegations from this past summer. In fact, that a Nassau County police officer forced a young woman into a sexual encounter. Today's arrest is based on an entirely new allegation, an allegation that a police officer stopped another young woman while he was on duty in the middle of the night and sexually assaulted her.
Investigators say Officer Matthew Murphy was on the job and in uniform when he allegedly forced a young woman into a sexual encounter 13 months ago.
The entire time she was in fear that the police officer may shoot her and that she was in fear for her life. She was walked into the woods with Murphy, and at which time she was sodomized.
Detectives say it happened in a wooded area in Farmingdale, Long Island, not far from where another similar encounter was alleged to have taken place back in August. Detectives have refused to say whether Officer Murphy is a suspect in that incident, but they admit that the publicity it generated led to Murphy's arrest, which is based on an independent eyewitness who came forward.
The witness had recorded not only the car number of the police car, but also the license plate number of the vehicle.
The officer's wife and family left the courthouse this morning, described by their attorney as distraught.
We intend to fight it very, very vigorously.
Are you questioning the credibility of...
I'm questioning the entire incident. I don't even know if it ever happened, and certainly my client's participation in this incident is something that I believe never happened.
And that's what he's told you?
Yes.
Officer Murphy denying the allegations. He was ordered held on $50,000 bail. The charge, first-degree sodomy. And investigators say there are indications that Officer Murphy had been stalking his alleged victim. We'll have more on that part of the story in Eyewitness News beginning at 5 o'clock tonight. Now we're live at Nassau County Police Headquarters in Mineola, Long Island. NJ Burkett, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
NJ, also on Long Island, an ongoing police search for the killers of...
Rush hour. Authorities believe the derailment may have been caused by a cracked rail. Over 100 people were taken off the train and bused to a nearby station to complete their journey. There were no injuries reported.
A message today.
On. Investigators still trying to figure out the extent of damage to the train and the tracks. The train derailed at the Stony Hill crossing east of the Green Lawn Station. NJ Burkett has the latest for us from the scene. NJ.
Bill, just east of the accident scene, Green Lawn, Long Island. As you said, the train itself has been moved, but the track has been damaged. Just off the telephone with the Long Island Railroad, they're now telling me that roughly 1,000 feet of track has been damaged on the Port Jefferson branch. The track is being inspected at this hour. What we do not know is how serious that damage is, and we still don't know what caused this accident.
The massive diesel locomotive was driven from the scene within the hour, after it was lifted back onto the rails of the Long Island Railroad's Port Jefferson branch. Passengers told us they had no idea what had happened.
You didn't feel nothing, and I don't know, we sat there for maybe 10 minutes, and then all of a sudden they said, you know, the train derailed, You didn't even notice that it happened.
I was actually looking out the window. It was a nice, slow, smooth stop. You wouldn't have known that anything was wrong at all.
It occurred at 1:30 this afternoon when the train came to a sudden, grinding halt between the railroad's Green Lawn and Northport stations. Volunteer firefighters evacuated the passengers one by one, then drove them in a caravan of four-wheel drive vehicles to a series of buses.
It was fine. They were very helpful, and we didn't really have a problem. I thought they did it very quickly and effectively.
It is still not clear what caused the accident. Investigators say the wheels of the locomotive had slipped off the rails. The train originated in Hicksville, bound for Port Jefferson, and railroad officials said service through this area would be suspended indefinitely. According to the LIRR's contingency plans, passengers headed service provided to those destinations as well. Passengers we spoke with were happy enough that it wasn't any worse.
After being arrested for sexual assault. Long Island reporter Greg Sergel picks up the story.
He was arrested at his own precinct house, a Nassau cop who one prosecutor says violated his public trust. And now, after 6 years on the job, Matthew Murphy is suspended without pay, charged with forcing a woman to perform oral sex on him in this wooded area in West Farmingdale last December.
The entire time she was in fear that the police officer may shoot her and that she was in fear for her life.
Police say the victim, a 32-year-old Salvadoran immigrant, has identified Murphy as her attacker. Investigators say he was on duty and in uniform at the time, but this was no random act. He had met his victim 3 years before at his home precinct, the 8th, when the woman turned in a purse she had found. After that, Murphy came to her home and called to strike up a relationship, but the woman rejected him until he found her at this gas station that December night and ordered her to follow him to the wooded area.
I'm questioning the entire incident. I don't even know if it ever happened, and certainly my client's participation in this incident is something that I believe never happened.
Murphy's lawyer, Paul Gianelli, says his client is being made a scapegoat in the wake of allegations made earlier this week that an 8th Precinct cop also pulled a woman over last August and forced her to perform oral sex. Police won't say if Murphy is a suspect in that case, but say they have a female witness who placed him in the woods last December. The woman is a kind of neighborhood watchdog who uses notes scribbled on calendars to keep track of comings and goings along a street that's been a notorious lover's lane. On the night in question, police say she saw a patrol car and another car parked here, wrote down their license plate numbers, but never reported it until earlier this week when she heard about allegations of sexual abuse by a Nassau police officer. That's when she pulled out her calendars and provided cops with their big break.
I think it's absolutely disgusting. I can't imagine something like that happening.
Murphy's family said nothing to reporters after he pleaded not guilty at his arraignment. The husband and father of 2 is back in court next month. Greg Sergel, News Channel 4.
Police have yet
Tonight, a man sworn to uphold the law has been arrested for breaking the law. Cynthia Guava tells us about a Nassau County police officer who has been charged with forcing a woman to perform a sex act.
Matthew Murphy was arraigned this morning on charges of sodomy in the first degree. The 36-year-old Nassau County cop is accused of stopping the woman and forcing her to perform oral sex on him. The alleged incident occurred 2 years ago, a crime never reported until now. Murphy works out of the 8th Precinct in Levittown. Investigators say he stopped a woman in Farmingdale 2 years ago, took her to a secluded wooded area, and sodomized her. Officials say Murphy knew the victim and was stalking her.
The entire time she was in fear that the police officer may shoot her and that she was in fear for her life.
Officials are also investigating whether Murphy was involved in a similar incident that occurred last August. In that incident, officials say a woman was stalked by an officer on duty in an unmarked car. She was taken to a wooded area in Bethpage and forced to perform oral sex on the officer.
We haven't concluded that investigation, so we haven't determined any suspect in that case yet.
But police say there is one link. When the August attack hit the newsstands this past week, police say a witness came forward, a woman who told cops she witnessed something very similar 2 years ago in the same precinct.
The witness had recorded not only the car number of the police car, but also the license plate number of the vehicle.
Police took that license plate number and tracked down the victim. The victim told police she was attacked by Murphy 2 years ago. Police records show Murphy was working that night, driving the same car the witness identified. Murphy was arrested last night at work. His family was in Hempstead court today for his arraignment.
I'm questioning the entire incident. I don't even know if it ever happened, and certainly my client's participation in this incident is something that I believe never happened.
Murphy is suspended without pay. He's free on bail. He's due back in court in mid-February. In Levittown, Cynthia Guava, UPN 9 News.
Finally tonight, some really hardcore Giants fans turned out to honor Big Blue by turning blue.
Oh, yeah, they took a dip in the frigid Atlantic Ocean. More than 100 members of the Polar Club. Yeah, those polar bears took the plunge off the shore of Long Beach today. The swim was more than just winter fun. It was also a special fundraiser. The group was raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Heart of souls, aren't they? That's it for us tonight. Thank you for joining us. I'm Koran Mahalik.
I'm Reg 999.
I bet you were bundled up in coats and scarves today, but more than 100 people put on their bathing suits and hit the beach on Long Island for a dip in the ocean. They're all members of the Polar Bear Club in Long Beach, and the winter swim has become a Super Bowl Sunday ritual for them. This time around, they raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Ooh, it looked cold out there.
Great reasons to visit your Tri-State Quality Ford store today.
Everybody in the ocean, ho, if you dare. It's time for the 4th annual Super Bowl Polar Bear Plunge in Long Beach. This year, though, there is a method to this madness. They're raising money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation. More than 100 polar bears made the plunge this afternoon.
I think it might just be easy.
Investigators say 26-year-old Anthony Correnti had sex with the girls over the last 3 years. They also say they found videotapes of Correnti having sex with 2 other teenage girls in a classroom at the School for Environmental Studies. Correnti resigned from his teaching job back in 1999. In New Jersey, firefighters rescued 2 young girls trapped in a 3-alarm blaze in a Rutherford home this morning. Newscopter 7 was over the scene.
A former Manhattan school teacher is being held on a suicide watch tonight after being charged with having sex with 5 teenage girls. Police say Anthony Correnti is at the center of a shocking web of child porn and former students. We have the story now from Greg Sergel.
Prosecutors say the 26-year-old met his victims in the classroom or over the internet. And now former school teacher Anthony Correnti is facing a 52-count indictment. It alleges that since 1997, Correnti sexually abused or raped 5 girls between the ages of 13 and 16.
It's very scary that someone this young in a position of trust, such as a school teacher, could engage in this type of activity.
Correnti taught at both Manhattan's High School for Environmental Studies and later in Nassau County's Seaford School District, resigning both times. Prosecutors say a tip from a parent prompted their investigation. But the bulk of the evidence against Correnti was found when investigators raided his West Islip home and seized his computer.
About 10,000 images of child pornography, approximately 500 videotype clips in a computer format of child pornography.
It's perhaps the largest cache of child porn ever found in Suffolk. In addition, prosecutors say they discovered a videotape showing Correnti having sex with 2 14-year-olds in a classroom. Correnti's neighbors, many with young children, were outraged.
It's sick, you know, because it's so close to home. It's right on your block. I couldn't believe it.
I'm appalled that nothing was done from the city nor Seaford School District.
City schools investigators say they checked allegations against no evidence of criminal wrongdoing. Seaford schools would only acknowledge that Correnti had worked for them. After the raid here at Correnti's home, prosecutors say he provided them with 3 written statements, in effect confessing and admitting he had a sickness. Prosecutors fear, though, that more victims may be found. Correnti's lawyer wouldn't comment. Correnti is being held on a $500,000 bail on a suicide watch. Greg Sergel, News Channel 4.
All right, Corinne, thanks. A family dispute has ended in tragedy tonight. A woman is accused of shooting her own son. Now, Jim Gately has been following that story and joins us live now from Nassau County Medical Center with the latest. Jim?
Well, Roland, right now the son is in critical condition in the intensive care unit. It's not known if he will pull through because he was shot in the chest. And police also don't know if it was a deliberate act or an accident. Late this afternoon, Nassau County police swarmed this Hicksville house after reports that a shot had been fired. Neighbors say they never suspected anything unusual about the mother and son who lived there.
He was a typical teenager, you know, fast cars, but nothing to this extent that we would think anything like this would happen. Very surprised.
Any trouble here before?
No, none at all.
It appears the incident began with an argument between the mother and the son. The incident ended when the mother fired a handgun and the shot hit the son. Police rushed the son to an ambulance, but his chest wound was considered so serious, he was then immediately airlifted to Nassau County Medical Center. Neighbors could not believe he had been shot.
My fiance and her sister went to school with Brian. Seemed like a very calm sort of guy. This is really a shock to the neighborhood.
The mother and son lived here. The husband died 2 years ago of cancer. The woman, who sources say works for the New York City Department of Corrections, was taken into custody. While local residents were surprised by the mysterious shooting, one said there may have been hints of a family dispute.
Really not sure. You know, it's hard when you're a young adult. There's a lot of things you can get in trouble with that catch up with you fast.
Right now, it's all under investigation, including what the original argument was about, and charges against the mother are pending. We're live in Nassau County. Jim Gately, UPN 9. Brenda, back to you.
Jim, thank you very much. A 15-year-old boy is under...
Una familia de Long Island. Un joven de unos 20 años fue herido de bala esta tarde. La autora del disparo es su progenitora.
Rafael, nuestra colega Olga Álvarez se encuentra en Long Island con los detalles de esta triste historia. Olga, adelante.
Muy buenas noches, Denise. Aparentemente fue todo resultado de una disputa doméstica. No se sabe si fue accidental o fue intencional, pero lo cierto es que una madre sacó una pistola y disparó contra su propio hijo. Los vecinos de la calle Cantiac Rock Road en Hicksville se sorprendieron esta tarde al ver salir esposada a la dueña del número 219. La policía esposó a la viuda después de que supuestamente esta le entró a tiros a uno de sus hijos de alrededor de 20 años. Todo sucedió alrededor de las 4 de la tarde. El hijo, herido en el pecho y el hombro, fue trasladado al hospital Nassau County Medical Center, donde fue intervenido. Liz Isabel conoce a la madre sospechosa.
Probably, but she was retired. Her and her husband both retired. She worked for she was a Department of Corrections.
Su esposo murió hace poco de cáncer y ambos eran retirados. Trabajaban en el Departamento de Correcciones. En cuanto a los hijos, son adolescentes con problemas habituales de esa edad y estamos muy sorprendidos por su reacción. La policía de Hicksville interroga a varias personas y el teniente encargado dice que no quiere dar ninguna información hasta que tenga datos concretos. Mientras tanto, el hijo se encuentra aquí en el hospital en condición crítica y fue intervenido esta tarde. Esa es toda la información que tenemos en este momento. Reportando en vivo desde Hempstead, Olga Álvarez. Ahora continuamos con Rafael.
Gracias, Olga. Permanece en estado crítico.
O'clock News. Another case of sexual misconduct involving a Nassau County cop. Former officer Jay Seifert is accused of allegedly pulling over a car back in October and coercing one of the two females inside to have sex with him. The alleged victim reported the incident to the Nassau County Police Department the same day. Seifert's lawyer admits his client had sex with the woman, but he says it was consensual.
It's clear to me that with all the hoopla that surrounded this original arrest and the way they've been acting like a witch hunt, that they had to come up with something, and they did.
Well, he has been fired. He's been charged with coercion, receiving a bribe, and official misconduct. Seifert has pleaded not guilty to the charges. And a woman who claims she was forced to perform oral...
UPN 9 News. Rollin.
All right, thank you, Coran. A Nassau County cop was indicted today, and he's accused of forcing a female driver to have sex with him. Jay Seifert, seen here on the left, is charged with stopping two female drivers and then making one of them have sex with him. The incident allegedly happened last October. The grand jury dropped the rape and sodomy charges, but indicted him on coercion and other charges.
A woman who started walking
por detrás. En otras noticias, en el condado de Suffolk, en Long Island, no se acaban los problemas para su departamento de policía. Una mujer convaleciente de cáncer en el seno, quien visitaba a sus padres en la víspera de Año Nuevo, reconoció al policía Frank Wright como el que le hizo quitarse la blusa. La mujer dijo haber subido al auto patrullero siguiendo las instrucciones de la gente y que semidesnuda había sido obligada a caminar 4 cuadras cerca de Mystic Beach. Y las cosas siguen empeorando para el...
More allegations tonight that Suffolk County Police stopped women and forced them to strip. 3 more women have filed suit today. One talked about an incident from 15 years ago. Another told a story of being stopped and later waking up to find the officer in her bedroom, while another, who did not want to be identified, told how the officer forced her to take off her shirt, even though she had scars from breast cancer.
He asked me that there was two things that I could do. I could go to jail, or I could take my top off. And at that time, I took my top off. I didn't want to go to jail. But at first I told him no, because I told him I didn't want to, and he asked why. I told him because I have scars and cancer.
These women did not name Officer Frank Wright, who, as the man who assaulted them. Wright is accused of more than a half a dozen other cases.
The terror trial of 4 men accused of bombing U.S. embassies in Africa began today in
Pasando a Long Island, la decisión de un juez tiene a los automovilistas botando fuego, especialmente aquellos que tienen que pagar multas por violaciones de tránsito por exceso de velocidad. Nuestra compañera Olga Álvarez, en directo desde el condado de Nassau, nos dice de qué se trata. Olga.
Rafael, ¿cuántas veces no hemos enviado esa multa por correo? Hemos escrito este cheque enviado por correo la multa para evitarnos precisamente ese día en los tribunales. Bueno, pues los conductores que han recibido infracciones de tránsito por exceso de velocidad no pueden hacer eso y tienen que ir obligatoriamente ante un juez. Gran inconveniencia para muchos. Estas filas de conductores que se ven cada mañana frente a la Agencia de Violaciones a las Leyes de Tránsito y Estacionamiento del Condado Nassau responden a una antigua ley del año 1953.
Y hace demasiadas filas, a veces está hasta 3 horas uno esperando la fila desde allá lejos a esperar aquí.
This line is a disgrace that the taxpayers of Nassau County.
Esto es una vergüenza. Pagamos demasiados impuestos para recibir servicio tan deficiente.
$85.
Todo comenzó cuando el condado incrementó los precios de las multas por exceso de velocidad. Según el director de la agencia, ellos no tienen jurisdicción para permitir que se envíen los pagos por correo. Pero el ejecutivo del condado no está de acuerdo.
That to me is an improper interpretation.
Un juez simplemente interpretó la ley de forma que los que reciben multas por exceso de velocidad tienen la obligación de pagar en persona. Deben presentarse ante un juez aunque quieran declararse culpables y pagar la multa. Dice que deben hacérselo fácil, no difícil. Sin embargo, Tom Carroll, el director de la agencia, dice que a veces es conveniente. Les ofrece a los conductores la oportunidad de negociar su multa y eliminar esos costosos puntos de su licencia. El ejecutivo del condado busca el apoyo de los senadores estatales para que se apruebe una ley que revierta todo como estaba antes, que sencillamente se pueda enviar el pago por correo. Por supuesto, tienen que ser multas por velocidad, multas menores. También me aclaró que hay 130,000 multas pendientes que significan para este condado $13 millones, así que está muy interesado. Informando en vivo desde Mineola, en Long Island, Olga Álvarez. Ahora continuamos con Denise.
Gracias, Olga.
And 9 News.
Tonight, a search for a group of thugs on Long Island has intensified. Police are hoping a surveillance video will lead to that group that savagely beat an aspiring male model. Logan Crawford is live now in Suffolk County with the latest on this story. Logan?
Roland, a Medford man is recovering tonight. He was attacked brutally. He was left in a near coma. His orbital sockets broken. His lip needed reconstructive surgery. It was that bad. And what makes the attack so especially brutal is the fact the man hoped to make a living with his face. Robert Bettis is a young man who dreams of becoming a model. But you won't find these photos in the Medford man's portfolio. You see, this is what his face looked like after being viciously attacked and robbed.
When he arrived at the parking lot of the California Diner in Patchogue, he got out of his car, never saw anybody approach him at that point, and was assaulted in the parking lot.
Investigators are releasing a surveillance tape taken outside of a Smithtown bar on the night of the attack. Detectives want to talk to these two men who encountered Robert Bettis near the bar. A short while later, he was jumped upon arriving at the Sunrise Highway Diner.
Certainly, he's been traumatized by the event. The injuries were severe. He's required some plastic surgery to his face to repair some of the injuries.
Police say robbery was the motive for the attack, his chain and crucifix stolen along with his gold watch. The two men police want to question are seen in the tape running for their car, a white Camaro. Tony Warren, Robert's cousin, says whoever assaulted Bettis showed no mercy.
He says he's coming out of his car and someone hit him from behind, and basically he was trying to stay up, and he just, whoever did this was cruel and mean, and basically that was it.
The beating left Robert in a semi-comatose state with orbital fractures, brain swelling, and a lip that needed reconstructive surgery.
Actually, he's coming back looking like a pretty good-looking chap like he normally looks. I mean, the face, Bobby's a tough guy. He's doing well.
Now, if you have any information that could help the police with their case, contact the Suffolk County Police. A reward is being offered. We're live in Suffolk County. Logan Crawford, UPN 9 News. Brenda?
Thanks, Logan. New York's bravest risk their lives putting out fire.
Help track down the attackers.
A Nassau County judge is putting the brakes on speeders by making them come to court to pay off their tickets. As Chris O'Donoghue reports, many drivers say the system is making their lives miserable.
I don't really like it. I don't really like it. I don't want to be here.
It was a highly resentful crowd outside Nassau County Traffic and Parking Violations Agency in Hempstead. The line stretched for a long 2 blocks, and people spent up to 3 hours waiting.
Broke the law. I was speeding.
Like Kevin Bennett, most of these people are here for speeding violations. They may have been in a hurry when they got their tickets, but now because of an obscure law in Nassau County, they are left cooling their heels when it comes to paying up. A judge says speeders can no longer mail in their fines, even when they want to plead guilty and pay up. Now they must show up in person.
I think if people want to plead guilty, why should they have to show up? Especially if it was their first time.
There are some who say forcing speeders to come to court regardless is not a bad way to get their attention. But County Executive Thomas Galata is not among them. He wants legislators in Albany to change this law.
There are $13 million in potential money that is outstanding to the taxpayers of Nassau County that TIPFA needs to collect. I'm told over 130,000 tickets that are 60 days old. And people want to be able to do it by mail.
The county executive says maybe not all speeding violators should get off the hook with any change in the law, but that should be up to the Board of Judges that sets limits.
They may want to say in establishing regulations that if people are in excess of 20 miles of the speed limit, or if they have an excessive number of speeds, that then they'll be required to come in.
I like to just pay it and get it over with. Everybody makes mistakes.
Chris O'Donoghue, UPN 9 News.
Ariel Sharon is preparing his...
Nassau County may already have a clogged court system, but a new policy could tie it up even more.
Here's why. Officials have started enforcing an old law requiring all speeders to pay their tickets in person. That has some drivers seeing red. Long Island correspondent Rosemary Gomez has more from Hempstead.
As if the lines outside the Nassau County Traffic Agency aren't long enough. Angry ticket holders say a controversial court order is just making matters worse. It requires everyone who receives a speeding ticket to appear in person, even if they want to plead guilty and pay by mail.
I think that if you don't want to show up in court and take a day off of work, you should be able to send it in.
I don't really like it. I don't want to be here.
The court order went into effect last November after the Honorable Ira Rabb, who presided over the Board of Judges in Nassau District Court, stumbled on this state law from 1953, requiring all alleged speeders to appear in court.
It doesn't make any sense to require somebody to physically appear in court and lose time from work or whatever they're doing merely to plead guilty to something they could plead guilty to by mail.
County Executive Thomas Galata agrees, but he inadvertently triggered the problem last year after requesting a ticket increase from the Board of Judges to help his financially strapped county. Now he's lobbying the state legislature to change the law.
For those people who are single offenders and who might not have done something egregious, but who nevertheless were over the speed limit, they certainly should be permitted to mail their tickets in.
Traffic agency officials don't know exactly how many speeding tickets have been issued by the county since the policy changed, but police say its highway patrol alone has issued almost 4,000 tickets since early November.
I believe that the judge is in error. We have researched the issue. We think he is looking at the wrong law.
The minority leader of the Nassau legislature thinks the law no longer applies, claiming the traffic agency was given the authority to supersede it. He's now appealing to a higher court
To allow taxpayers to pay their tickets by mail and to allow what is one of the few things that has been working well over in that bureau to continue to work well.
Meanwhile, the aggravation may be enough to deter some drivers from ever speeding again. In Hempstead, I'm Rosemary Gomez for the WB11 News at 10.
Children in Rockland County better get...
We have cable.
The line stretches for blocks. Drivers forced to stand and wait to pay speeding tickets, all because a judge dusted off a decades-old law. For years, Nassau County drivers could simply write a check and mail in their speeding tickets.
But now, a judge is enforcing a law from 1953 that requires drivers to pay speeding tickets in person. Well, as you might imagine, plenty of drivers are fuming. Joe Torres talked to them today. He is live in Great Neck. Joe.
And Tim and Roz, you can imagine, just about anywhere else, you get a speeding ticket, you admit it, you're guilty, you want to end it, you just pay the ticket, you send it in, you cut a check, and you mail it. Well, that's not an option anymore here in Nassau County. You now have to pay in person. And for some people, they say the inconvenience is worse than the ticket. Hospital nurse Cynthia Hyacinth was more than willing to pay her speeding ticket for doing 73 in a 55-mile-per-hour speed zone as long as she could mail it in. But she can't. Nassau County speeders now have to pay their speeding tickets in person.
I had to take the time off, which they needed me there. I had to be here. And then, of course, I had to go to the ATM to get cash because they don't take credit cards or personal checks.
Basically, it's taking the whole day. It's not like an hour or half an hour. Basically, you got to be online, wait for like an hour or so.
It turns out last year the Nassau County Executive, in an effort to boost revenue in the cash-strapped county, sought to increase the fines for speeders. Judge Ira Rabb did some research and found this 1953 law mandating speeders show up in court in person. It's not exactly a law that makes sense now, but the law is the law.
As a matter of judicial administration, which is something I can comment on, the courts are here to serve the public. And for making the courts more convenient to the public is something that judicial administration should be involved in.
Thomas Carroll couldn't agree more. He's the executive director of the Nassau County Traffic and Parking Violations Agency. He says in 1999, 6,000 people paid their speeding tickets through the mail. If that same number of speeders suddenly starts showing up in his building, Carroll admits he's going to need some help.
What I'm hoping is that I have been pleading for more staff, and I'm hoping that my request will be considered again.
Now, there is some good news in all of it. The county executive, we're told, is in the process of drafting some legislation that will get the law changed again so that you can pay through the mail. But nonetheless, if you were visiting here in Nassau County, you came from Rochester or Syracuse, and you got a ticket, the locals here say they'll work with you, but ultimately, yes, you are going to have to make a return trip. Live in Great Neck, I'm Joe Torres, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Thank you, Joe. The Board of Education in Wyckoff is accusing...
Under arrest in Patchogue. 31-year-old Rocco Schuster will be arraigned today on charges of harassment and public lewdness. A woman claims Schuster has been following her in his car and exposing himself to her for the past several months. Police used a decoy to nab him. Schuster is scheduled to begin a jail term next month for a public lewdness conviction involving the same woman.
And that was Kathy Hobbs reporting for us. Police in Suffolk County say they've caught a stalker in the act and tonight are looking for other victims. 31-year-old Rocco Schuster of Sound Beach is accused of following a woman in her car, pulling up to her and exposing himself. Cops say he was arrested last July for stalking the same woman on Route 111 and began stalking her again after he was released. He was arrested yesterday after following a car driven by a female cop.
He has told us that he has picked out other victims in the same area. None of those victims have come forward at this time, but we'd like to, we're reaching out to the public.
Schuster is known to drive a 1994 Chevy Cavalier and a blue 1997 Ford Ranger pickup. Well, police are on the lookout tonight for a serial flasher who's been exposing himself to...
Jonathan, thank you. A man on Long Island already charged with having sex with 5 girls in Suffolk County is now being indicted in Manhattan for the alleged rape and sodomy of 2 more. Anthony Correnti is a former New York City teacher. The DA says Correnti had sex with the 2 14-year-old girls in the band room at Manhattan School for Environmental Studies, and that he videotaped the incidents on 2 separate occasions. After searching his home last month, Suffolk police say they found thousands of photos and videos of children engaged in sex acts. Correnti is currently being held on $500,000 bail.
Former heavyweight boxer Riddick Bowe is free on bail tonight. Police arrested him at his Long Island home yesterday. Terry Bowe claims that her husband beat her and then dragged her and threatened her life when she tried to run away. Bowe pleaded innocent and denies the charges.
Police are taking a close look at the videotape of Eminem's British concert. That story.
Former heavyweight champ Riddick Bowe is out on bail tonight. He was arrested earlier today for assaulting his wife at their home on Long Island. Police showed up at Bowe's home in Upper Brookville, found Bowe's wife Terry cut up and bruised, and they arrested him. The boxer is accused of hitting her in the head, dragging her across the floor, and threatening her life. His attorney denies these charges.
She had every motive in the world to fabricate the circumstances of this, and I can't really give you any further comment.
Terry Bowe is out of the hospital tonight. The judge has issued a temporary order of protection. The ex-champ has already served time for kidnapping a former wife and their 5 children.
Well, it looks tonight like Derek Jeter is
on $2,500 bail. Fox 5 News. Riddick Bowe is out of jail now on $2,500 bail. He faced a judge on those charges of assaulting his wife. Former heavyweight champ showed up in Nassau County Court after his wife said they got into a fight at their home in Upper Brookville yesterday. He wasn't saying much.
Denied that things took place the way this young woman says they did, and that she had absolutely every reason in the world to make things up.
His lawyer says Mr. Bowe and this wife are divorcing. He did serve some time in jail for briefly kidnapping his former wife and their children a couple of years ago. Rosanna.
John, the family of a lawyer from Brooklyn is worried.
And in Suffolk County, police are asking for your help in finding an attempted abductor in an abduction case. The alleged victim, a 13-year-old junior high school student. This happened Tuesday afternoon in West Babylon. Police say the girl got off of a school bus when a light gray van pulled up next to her. The 13-year-old attempted to walk away, but the driver pulled her into the van. And a short struggle ensued. The teenager did manage to escape unharmed.
She describes her assailant as a male, approximately 5'8", thin build, wearing a ski mask with only eye cutouts, nothing for the nose or the mouth. He was wearing light blue dungarees, dark blue navy windbreaker that zipped up.
Suffolk County Police ask anyone with information on the case to call them as soon as possible.
There is a shocking new twist in the case of the Suffolk County cop accused of abusing.
An armed robbery caught on videotape. Suffolk County Police released a surveillance video of a convenience store holdup.